Hi guys. Everyone has a story, and all of our stories are important. Well, that's what I believe anyway. And even if we all have important stories individually, we can't lose sight of the fact. I think it's important to not lose sight of the fact that we're also caught up in bigger stories. For instance, the stories of our families impact our stories. The stories of our nations impacts our stories. And stories are important because stories, these kinds of stories, they tell us, among other things, how we got here, what our identity is, what's wrong with the world, and who the bad guys are, amongst other things. And they also tell us how to fix what's been broken. They tell us where we're going. And when you put all of that together, that idea of who we are and where we're going and how to fix things, that kind of constitutes a plot. Stories have a plot. All big stories have a plot. And Christianity, for instance, has a plot. It introduces, in the big story of God, the big story of Christianity, it introduces who God is. That is, God is creator. He's good. He made everything perfect. It introduces who humans are, that humans are made in the image of God, that they're made for a relationship with God, and they're made to represent God. And also talks about what went wrong, that humans rebelled against God and corrupted everything that He made perfect. And then after it introduces the characters, the main characters, who God is, who we are, introduces what went wrong. Humans rebelled against God and kind of corrupted everything that God made perfect. And then talks about God's plan, God's plot, so to speak, how He's going to progress things and what He's going to do in reaction to who the bad guys are. Basically, it talks about God's promise to fix what humans have corrupted, including themselves. God has a plan, God has a plot, God has a promise to fix everything that's been broken, everything that's been corrupted, all of creation, including humans. And so we read about the beginning of this next part of God's story in Genesis 12, verse 1, where it says this: "The Lord said to Abram, 'Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.'" So, at this point in the story of God, the story of Christianity, the world is thoroughly broken, and evil intensifies within humanity and within creation itself. But God is committed to His creation. God is committed to humans. After all, He made humans His representatives, and even though they've rebelled against Him, God is still committed to them because He loves them. So God, He institutes His plan to restore what's been broken. God chooses a man named Abram, who is old and childless, and says, "I'm going to bless you." So God promises to make this man, Abram, a father of a people, and through him, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. He sets up a covenant relationship with Abram. The closest thing we have to a covenant in modern society is a marriage. And he sets up this covenant with Abram, this covenant relationship, and says, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. This is an old man who has no children. And he says, and does a miracle and gives him a child. And that child goes on to be the ancestor of Israel. And for some, it might seem like favoritism for God to choose one person and one nation over all others. And as you kind of read the story, and if you put it to me like, why would God choose one person? I kind of get it. I agree that in some ways it does seem unfair. But as the Bible tells the story, a person is chosen to be blessed. And there's a reason why that person is chosen. That person is chosen to be blessed. Abram is chosen to be blessed. The people of God, or Israel, are chosen to be blessed so that all people can be blessed. One man is chosen so that all men can be chosen. One nation is chosen so that all nations can be chosen. A person is chosen to be in relationship with God so that all people can be in relationship with God. God chooses someone in particular so that all people universally can be blessed. In fact, as the story develops, this chosen people of God, this chosen nation of God, Israel, they get into trouble, and they get into their most serious trouble when they stop wanting to be a blessing to the people around them. When they kind of forget why they were chosen in the first place, to be a blessing to all of the nations, all the families of the earth. And even if having to start somewhere with someone looks like favoritism, I mean, what in my mind, it's kind of like, well, God's got to start somewhere. He's got to start with someone, right? And that might look like favoritism. But even if it does look like favoritism to some, what's interesting to me is, who does God choose to bless? And who does he choose to be that conduit, that pipeline that all the families of the earth, all the nations of the earth will be blessed through? He's choosing, remember, God, in this part of the story, God's choosing a group of people, a person, a nation, so that his blessing can flow to them and through them to the rest of the world. And who does God choose? Even if it does seem unfair, God chooses the most unlikely of people. God chooses a man called Abram, who is an idol worshipper from Iraq, who is in his old age, who has no children. And he says, God says to Abram, says that you and your descendants will be blessed, yes, but you will bless the whole world. You're chosen to be a blessing. I'm going to bless you so that others can be blessed. According to this big story of Christianity, there's nothing to stop God choosing the most unlikely. This is what this part of the story tells me about who God is. This is what it's disclosing about God's character. There's nothing to stop God choosing the most unlikely. There's nothing to stop God choosing the most sinful, the most weak, or the most unqualified. God looks for those who are willing to trust him. So if we're going to talk about unfairness, I think we need to keep that in mind. Why does God choose the marginalized? Why does God choose those without power? And so I think it says something about who God is and who we are, that even after we rebelled against him, according to the story, he reached out to someone unlikely to enter into a relationship with him, so that all that has been broken and corrupted could start to be repaired. Maybe there's a part of us that wishes that God would just snap his finger and that everything will be fixed. But according to the story, that's not how he works. He's working through people, through relationship with people, to fix everything that's been broken. And I don't know, maybe you think that's cool. There's some kind of bigger plan and maybe even poetry in the way God has decided to do things. Maybe you think it's like really unfair and that he should have just snapped his fingers to make everything go back to the way they were before humans rebelled against him. Maybe God should have even stopped humans rebelling against him in the first place. But according to the story, God is choosing to work through people to fix what's been broken. And so, maybe on that note, there's some questions here that I'd like you to think about that might kind of flesh out how this story can apply to our lives today, perhaps, and or even just to hear your opinion about what you think about this part of God's story. So, have you ever felt that God, or even the concept of God, was unfair? We're talking about this idea of, can you choose one person and still be fair? Have you ever felt that God was unfair? Or even the concept of God? If you don't believe in God, that idea of God, this story of God, is it unfair to you? And why? Why is that? Another question, why do some people who don't deserve it get chosen to be blessed by God? And then maybe as a little kind of pushing back against that idea of unfairness, would it be better if God chose the strong, if God chose those who are holy, if God chose the powerful? Another question, as the story is told, what are your thoughts on God wanting to fix the brokenness that human rebellion created? The whole reason we have this plot to this storyline is because humans rebelled against God, and God didn't just snap his fingers and say, that's it, I'm starting all over again. I'm rebooting everything. What are your thoughts on God wanting to fix what's been broken, rather than just starting all over again, wiping the slate clean? What else could God have done? Could he have done that, do you think? What would you do? If you were in that position, what would you do? And finally, does this part of the story make sense of something that you felt or experienced in your life? Maybe you've had a desire to restore something that's been broken. Maybe you've had a desire to be blessed. You want to be blessed. Maybe you've had a desire to be a blessing. Maybe this idea of being chosen resonates with you somehow. And does this part of the story, does it frame the things that we see in the world today in a useful way. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'd love to hear your feedback. Well, that's it from me, guys. Be interested to hear what you have to say about some of these questions. Thanks.